So, without further ado, here's basically what we're going to do. We're going to talk about the HR law that's coming up, and what it is, what's the arguments against it, and and where we stand with that as progressives. So I don't know if you guys have heard much about it. It's a huge bill. It's an 800-page bill that started from the House, and basically it is going to be a huge battle because it's not only going to reform. It's trying to reform voting and democracy, but it's also going to be sweeping in terms of like its progressive impact. And we'll get into that in a minute. So Republicans, of course, hate it, and Pence and others have started spewing a lot of falsehoods about it, and trying to shape the public opinion against that, and framing it in terms of cancel culture and destruction of American democracy and so forth. Exactly the opposite is the case, and it's sad, but that's the situation we're in. The thing is that even in the Democratic Party, it's not clear how much support it will have, because there are, as you know, blue dog Democrats such as Manchin and so forth, and they are not at all in favor of some of the parts in that bill. And again, hi to Barbara and Bill and Dan. It's nice to see you here. So basically, what's in that bill? All right. So basically, it comprises of three parts. One part is the second part is the accessibility of the voting and countering voter suppression. There's a part about ethics, and then there's a part about what we care most about, and that's reducing the effects of donations, corporate donations, and so forth, dark money, and so on. And providing for the first time a public funding for elections, which is just a huge thing. So that's basically what's in the cards regarding that. So let's go over some of the stuff that I didn't. Of course, I couldn't mention all of the issues, but at least some of the stuff that is in the bill, and that's affecting things. So basically, the first one is the permanent vote by mail standard option. Up till now, vote by mail was available, but it wasn't done on a scale that it has been in the last elections. Now that the last elections have proven to be relevant, we're basically pushing for like a general adoption of that standard. There's a requirement for a mandatory tax release for presidential candidates. That means also vice presidents, and they would by law have to release tax records, and we know that Trump has avoided doing so, and so this specifically addresses that. Same-day automatic registration process and online registration. So you can go online, register. It makes the registration much easier and much smoother and much faster than it currently is. So it aims to increase the scope of eligibility for voting. It's also addressing expansion of early voting, which is also, again, bringing more voters to the voting booth. A permanent and wide use of absentee voting boxes. That is also a lesson from the last election, where no large no significant fraud was found, in spite of Republicans' rhetoric. And it's amazing that they haven't changed it. They're like, not only have they not gotten down from those claims, but in fact others have joined it, like Pence, whose own life was endangered during the riots because of these false claims, has now said that many Americans do not believe that they believe that there was a large-scale fraud in the last elections. Finally, here on this one, it's restoring voting rights to past convicts. So if you've served your term and you've been released, you would be able to vote as opposed to right now. There's more. Regulation of inaugural committees and campaign coordination with foreign interests. So basically all this Russiagate and all that stuff would not be possible, whether it happened or not. It would not be possible because it would be much closer. There'd be a closer regulation of what the campaigns do and what the inaugural committees do. It's calling to end to partisan gerrymandering of congressional districts, which has been a huge problem, and the reason why there's such a skew in favor of Republicans and conservatives in most states. Gerrymandering has been a huge problem, and Republicans have been somewhat better at it. But either way, it's like it shouldn't happen at all, regardless of who's gaining from it. There's a robust regulation for campaign financing and dark money online. Sorry, not online registration, just dark money. And that is also an issue where funds from different donors may have an effect on a politician's stance, and if you don't know that the politician have received money from various entities, then you're missing part of the picture. There's also a call for public campaign financing matches. So, like I said, there's going to be, according to this bill, basically funds that are released to candidates publicly. So it would lower the impact of private money donations and big money donations on candidates. And that's very important to us as well. Outlaw voter caging, and let me explain a little what voter caging is. And that's basically when you send, let's say Republicans send letters to voters or to Democratic voters, and if the mail bounces, they use that to negate their vote eligibility. So they are stricken off the of the voter roll, and this bill would eliminate that practice. Prohibition of congressional candidates from being on corporate boards, also very important because of the impact those have. Of course, if you sit on on a corporate board, then you're not completely unbiased. Further, they would reserve a $1 billion fund for election security, and we've seen that in the past election that was a huge issue. In the past two elections, huge issue regarding securing the election integrity. There's more stuff in the bill, but basically, like I said, Republicans don't like this bill, and here's a caricature. We made it so difficult for everyone to vote. He's the only one qualified, and this goes towards the practice that Republicans have been taking, not only of gerrymandering, but on top of gerrymandering, doing everything they could to reduce the ability of people to vote, particularly in poor and minority areas. So they would try to suppress the vote by removing polling stations, by providing all kinds of obstacles. The voter ID obstacle was one that they've attempted by claiming that it's just against voter fraud, but in fact there hasn't been any voter fraud statistically to an extent that would justify that. Instead, that acts to eliminate a whole section of the population that does not hold driver's license or such IDs, particularly in the poor segments. So that's been the gameplay as to what Republicans have been doing, and it's not it hasn't surprised anyone. There's a clear reason for it, and that's that if people would have voted much more widely, Republicans would have lost elections much more. And Trump, as much as said that in practice, he's actually spelled that out and said that that would have been a disaster for the GOP if mail-in voting and absentee ballots became legal, and in fact they attempted to block that from happening, and when they couldn't block that from happening, that they tried after the fact eliminating votes that came in by mail. Entire segment of mail-in ballots is to be blocked and voided, which would have differentiated this, would have basically affected many votes that were cast and would not be counted. So basically, what's right now, what is the counter argumentation on that? And that's basically, like I said, Pence claimed that this is part of the cancel culture, that Democrats are trying to cancel the past forms of voting, which is kind of a ridiculous argument. It doesn't really make any sense. What it is trying to do is make voting easier, remove the effects of powerful brokers, and also create some sort of an ethical, much more stringent ethical process for elections. Republicans are claiming that the Congress should not affect state laws on voting, which is kind of ridiculous because that's exactly what they tried to do when they were trying to cast out the votes that were sent in by mail in the last elections. So to claim now that you can't do that is hypocrisy, in fact. So basically, this is now going to be one of the battles in the future, one that I consider to be perhaps the most important one. And it's hard to say which is most important, because you can't say that healthcare, public healthcare is not a crucially important one. Of course it is. But when you look at laws and how they fundamentally change the structure of things, this is one that would have a lasting, long, ongoing structural effect on things and on influence of politicians. So everything else kind of like falls from that. The reason we have corporate Dems that are blocking a lot of the progressive agendas and trying to work with Republicans to stop things from going forward is due to that fact that the corporate elite corporations and the wealthy class have such clout where it comes to elections. And this is part of what's being addressed here. So if you want to post about it or share this information with others, use the hashtag HR1, and it's important to start talking about it and to try to raise the issue, bring the issue to the fore, and basically call your representatives and so forth to pressure them to put this on the front burner, because this bill is really something that is like almost like a prerequisite for many of the other things to happen. It may be that this will require basically passing some sort of a filibuster reform, and that's something that I will cover in a future program, because it is a very interesting and delicate issue. Some people claim that it was. Some people claim that it is detrimental to remove the filibuster, because it would create a situation in which the minority in Congress cannot oppose anything, and that could be a problem once the tables turn. And there is definitely weight to that argument, but it's not necessarily the fact that you can either strike the filibuster or keep it as is. There's things in between, and there's tweaks and things that you could do. You can remove it for certain things and not for others. You can use perhaps public polling for determining which things cannot have their filibuster removed. And the issue here is to allow the filibuster to aid when it comes to the public opinion opposing the majority congressional thrust. So let's say if Republicans want something to happen, but it does not reflect the majority of the public, including their voters, then we don't want there to be no way of stopping that. So filibuster would be extremely important in these situations, especially where it comes to human rights, voter rights, stuff like that, racial issues and so forth, or even economic disparity. So that's a topic for another day, but it is possible that this bill and other progressive bills would require to jump into doing something about the filibuster. So yeah, so basically, yeah, that's right, Barbara. The long lines of voting is part of the voter suppression. It's not by accident. They very well know what is and what isn't going to cause long lines in voting places, and it's just it's designed that way. So let's launch into this week's satire, because we haven't done that, and let's see what we have here. So here's it's the little things that I miss. I've heard that phrase so many times, and she says it's the everything I miss. And I thought that was pretty indicative how I feel, and probably most of us do. Breaking news, something about the Royals or maybe Dr. Seuss. I don't really know, but after the year we've just had, I don't really care. It's another sentiment of COVID. Here's another one with Dr. Fauci driving the car and towards normal, and everybody in the car is asking, "Are we there yet?" And regarding the aid, finally we've gotten that aid was passed strictly by Democratic, along party lines, strictly by Democrats. Not a single Republicans has voted for it, and where was Josh Hawley? Of course, he voted against it as well. So this whole concept of the GOP for the working class is buried. There's no such thing, as we can see. So here's one of the checks, and it says, by cashing this check, you acknowledge that Biden won the elections. Well, and here's what the American people are saying. Americans need help, and the GOP thinks about Mr. Potato Head and Dr. Seuss. And that is exactly what's happening. This whole debate of the culture, the cancel culture, all of that. It's such a ridiculous, irrelevant thing of what's going on, and they're trying to change the dialogue, change the conversation for their voters to focus somewhere else. It's a distraction, and I don't know if it's working. I wonder if it's working. Yep. And here's Kaepernick. I'm sure he's thinking that same thought. Where were these GOP guys when they canceled him? And we have an extra hour of daylight. Just one. It feels like much more. This whole aid that was supposedly like this big fight, it's still pittance compared to what other countries have received, and we've been conditioned at this point to like really just think of crumbs as being miracles, but that is not the case. It's quite astounding that the U.S. is at the low end of providing assistance compared to other countries. They have not kept paying salaries, subsidized salaries, so businesses have gone out of business, restaurants and so forth. It's going to happen. It's going to be a long time before we manage to turn that around, because these restaurants and other places are not turning back, not coming back. And here's the firework brigade. The Democrats actually bypassing the Republicans. And here's another one. to that effect. The 1.9 trillion stimulus, the Democrats are lifting it, and the Republicans are hanging off of the weight. And Cuomo had a lot of jokes about him, and it's not surprising because it's such a turnaround from being considered like a presidential material and being at the top of adoration as to how he dealt with COVID. It turned out he didn't deal in all situations as well as he could. They covered up for it, especially with the nursing homes. And on top of that, that's what prompted all these women to come out and attack him for his sexual assault conducts. There's now a sexual assault claim, and there was sexual misappropriateness in other situations. And so we see the tide is turning, and not only Republicans but also a majority of Democrats are now in favor of him leaving office, and they've stated as much recently in New York State. Of course, Cuomo has refused to leave, and it's sad, but he's trying to try and avoid an obvious waterfall moment. Unfortunately, everybody else can see it, but he's still not seeing it. And they've not moved to impeach him yet, but that's probably around the corner unless he takes the hint. And I think even Ocasio-Cortez has stated that her support for the local Democrats who are asking for his resignation. And here's whoever, if you didn't hear, Pepe Le Pew was pulled by the company that did the cartoons, and here's Pepe Le Pew asking, "I'd still have a job if I was the governor of New York, oui?" And here's they used to have those stickers that had Cuomo on the windows, and this is referring to that. And another issue that has popped up this week and has been a matter of a lot of discussion was the royals in Britain and how they treated Meghan. We know that they have now Oprah's interviewed them. They basically, she was suicidal at some point. She pointed to a lot of racism in the royal family, and she says she was very depressed at some point after the birth, and I think it was something like that, and she requested help, but they denied her help because it wouldn't look good, and so she was traumatized by the whole thing, and it's like a sad thing that somebody who's marrying into a royal family has to go through this. But it exposed a lot of things about the British royalty. And here's Sleeping Beauty stopping the prince from kissing her because she'd rather have have a sweet dream than live a royal nightmare. And here's the little girl saying, "I'd like to read this one about the princes they tried to silence, but with the help of the queen. Oprah, she gets her votes back and brings down the monarchy." So that's that. Here's a shield, a rendition of the British royalty shield, and as you can see the Ku Klux Klan caps there. And here's the Queen saying, "The royal family is not at all racist. We're perfectly fine with a black eye." And here's Oprah interviewing, and the Queen says, "Could be worse. She could have been interviewing Andrew about Epstein." And finally, here's again the interview, and the woman says, "Poor dears. They just wanted to get away from systematic racism, feeling unsafe, being outcast and isolated." And the husband says, "So they came to the US?" So here we have it. That was a shorter program of this week, and especially about the HR1. Please share. You can, since I'm not using any video materials that could be copyrighted, you're welcome to donate if you wish on this program. And I hope you find it a nice week. I hope you get some good news, and things start moving in positive directions with the vaccine. I think it's encouraging that they are speeding up things. The news from Israel, that's almost entirely vaccinated their population by now, is encouraging in terms of the effects. They are already at the point of opening everything up, and the results of the vaccines are more optimistic, more positive than was hoped at this point, and I hope that continues. And I won't get into this whole issues of the Palestinian population finally getting their vaccines supplied by Israel, but that took a long time, and I wish it was faster. But of course, there's no other option, no other way. So hopefully, we're going to see the end of this ugly disease. All right, guys. So hope I see you next week. Marco's gonna be here again, and we're gonna cover many more topics for the upcoming week. All right, guys. See you around. Bye.